Good morning, Europe. It's Thursday, the 31st of May. Our headlines for you. Back from the dead. Shock around the world as this Russian journalist walks into a news conference hours after being reported dead. And from theCUBE, our social media news desk.
There's international condemnation from those who say these kind of tactics only give more ammunition to those who cry fake news.
Twitter power. Kremlin critic Bill Browder tweets his own arrest and a social media firestorm ensues. We break it all down. Back from the brink, Italy's two populist leaders get more time to form a government and stave off a snap election. And meeting a hero. Real-life Spider-Man who scaled a building to save a child in France tells us his story face to face. Thank you for starting your day with us. Our top story: with a story like this, who needs spy films? Ukraine is facing widespread condemnation this morning over what's being called a dubious plot. A Russian journalist dramatically walked into a press conference yesterday, hours after Ukrainian authorities announced he'd been murdered. Well, the ruse fooled the entire world, even his own wife. That's because Arkady Babchenko is a well-known Kremlin critic who fled to Ukraine in 2017, claiming Russia planned to kill him. NBC News' Richard Engel has this story.
Gasps of disbelief and applause as Russian journalist Arkady Babchenko, who Ukrainian police said was murdered, shot 3 times in his apartment, dying in an ambulance, even putting out a sketch of a suspect, was back from the dead, walking into a press conference with police, announcing it was all staged. I apologize to my wife for all the hell she had to go through, Babchenko said. News of his murder sparked an outcry. Supporters laying flowers at memorials and blaming Russia for ordering the hit. Babchenko is a critic of Vladimir Putin. While Russia denied involvement, many of Putin's critics have been shot or poisoned over the years, including opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, right next to the Kremlin. Nemtsov was shot in the back at least 5 times, right in front of his girlfriend. But this time, Ukraine's security forces said the faked killing was a sting operation, which they said led to the arrest of a man allegedly paid $40,000 by Moscow to organize Babchenko's murder. There was no other way, Babchenko said. But many are asking, will the hoax create doubts about other reporters actually murdered for doing their jobs? Richard Engel, NBC News.
Babchenko claims he had to do that. Well, now Ukraine and he are facing questions over the ethics of the plot, as well as the authenticity of claims that an assassin was trying to kill him. But for more on that, Belle has more.
Yes, Tessa, I do. And I want to go back, first of all, to the image that started it all. And I want to warn viewers before we do that they might find it distressing. But remember, it is a staged photograph. Here it is. The image of a man lying in a pool of his own blood on the floor with bullet wounds to the back. First circulated by Ukrainian users, and along with a picture of an alleged assassin, that's what fooled the whole world into thinking that Arkady Babchenko was in fact dead. Since then, that image has been reclaimed and retaken by pro-Russian users. This one says, next time you show me photos from Syria by the white helmets, I will show you a photo of dead Arkady Babchenko killed by Putin. The idea here is exposing the alleged hypocrisy of Ukraine for saying that Russia, or for criticizing Russia for spreading fake news, whilst also doing the same thing themselves. And it's not only the pro-Russians who are criticizing these tactics. Here we have a Russian investigative journalist who says this is crossing a line big time. Babchenko is a journalist, not a policeman, for Christ's sake, and part of our job is trust. This undermines the credibility of the media. There's a real sense in Ukraine that you can't trust anything you see at the moment, something that this Ukrainian user has also said. These guys debunk Russian propaganda. They say, welcome to the Ukrainian world. This is the hybrid reality we've been living in for the last 4 years since the crisis in Ukraine started. So what do you think? Were the tactics worth it? Let us know on #TheCube.
Thank you for that, Belle and the Cube team. Now, Italy's 2 main anti-establishment parties are expected to revive talks today to try and form a government. Five-star leader Luigi Di Maio and the League's Matteo Salvini had already pitched a cabinet last week, but the president vetoed the Eurosceptic pick for finance minister. Former IMF economist Carlo Cottarelli was asked to form a technocratic government instead, leaving Five Stars and the League furious and calling for fresh elections. Well, this whole debacle has spooked global financial markets. So can the populace now reach a compromise and form a government? Well, our European affairs correspondent Alastair Sanford joins us now in the studio. Alastair, a lot happening and unfolding here. Can you bring us up to speed?
Tessa, this has been a yo-yo situation all week, and now it seems, yes, that Plan A is back on track. President Mattarella waiting to give time to the Eurosceptic parties to try to form a government. He's stepped back from the earlier choice of Carlo Cottarelli. Why? Well, the decision to block in the first instance the Eurosceptic choice of finance minister, that infuriated the populists. Cottarelli perhaps realised he was going to get no majority in Parliament. There would be very early elections, and that could lead to a Eurosceptic victory, if not a complete landslide. So all this is what spooked the markets over Monday and Tuesday. They've now calmed down because there is now an attempt to get a government on track. As for the coalition parties in question, the anti-establishment Five Star, well, its leader Luigi Di Maio has given a reassurance via Facebook last night that there's no plot to exit the euro. He says that's a lie. He's opened the door to new talks with the far-right League leader Matteo Salvini. But there is still a question mark over who would get what posts, who would be Prime Minister, who would be Finance Minister. Remember, would it be this Eurosceptic choice? The League is still keen on that. Salvini has said, given a football analogy, saying a goalkeeper's got to play as a goalkeeper. A striker has to play as a striker. So there's still a lot of confusion. And the League has an interest in going for early elections because it's rising in the polls. So a very volatile situation. They're trying for a coalition right now. If, of course, they do get into power, well, that's a whole new ballgame because they could still be on a collision course with the EU.
Right, indeed. Thank you for that, Alastair Sanford. Well, details are emerging about a deadly attack this week in Belgium. 2 police officers and a 22-year-old man were killed in Liège when a man just released from prison stabbed the officers and opened fire. He also took a woman hostage at a nearby school. Now she is being hailed a hero, and she spoke about her ordeal, her identity concealed.
He said to me, I'll ask you 2 questions. What are you? Are you Muslim? I said yes. Are you doing Ramadan? I said yes. So he told me, I won't harm you. I told him, listen, you're in a school here, you can't come into a school. I said, it's not right what you're doing. And when I started to cry, he told me, no, you shouldn't cry.
Well, for the latest on the attack, Brian Carter joins us live now from Brussels. Brian, what is the feeling there?
Well, Tessa, I'm standing right here in front of the federal prosecutor's office in Brussels. But before we talk about the investigation that is ongoing, I'd like to take you back to Liège, where life appears to be back to normal. But yesterday was a very emotional day. Take a look. A city united in grief. The police force, the highest authorities in the country, and the people of Liège mark a minute of silence. A display of solidarity before an emotional ceremony to honor the 3 victims of Tuesday's attacks. This is not the first time Liège has been struck by terrorism. On this square in 2011, a gunman opened fire on pedestrians, killing 6. At the site of Tuesday's attack, everything appears to be back to normal, almost. This woman who works in the neighborhood went to school with Lucille Garcia, one of the police officers killed.
Lucille was a very cheerful girl who had her difficulties and sorrows in life too. She had a lot of worries. But she was a fighter, a really cheerful girl, very bright. I had a bad feeling that day and I sent her a little text on Messenger. She didn't reply and I thought, it's her.
The other police officer killed is Soraya Belkacemi, a mother of 13-year-old twin daughters whose father, a police officer too, also died. The school where the attacker Benjamin Herman was shot and killed remained sealed off, but in front of the cafe where the attack happened, people continued to lay flowers and leave words of condolence. Many here still wonder why such a horrific act was committed.
We're stunned about what happened in this neighbourhood. Of course, this attack wasn't committed by someone from the neighbourhood. It was an outsider who probably should not have been released.
The people of Liège and Belgium now want answers.
Right now, the federal prosecutor is qualifying the murders in Liège as terrorist assassination and attempted assassination. It could turn into terrorist attack if 3 elements are confirmed. First, did Benjamin Herman have direct contact with ISIS, as ISIS claimed? Did he indeed say Allahu Akbar during his attack? And did he specifically target representatives of the state? Now, all these elements will come up in the next few days and weeks. The investigation will also focus on a potential accomplice, whether he was high on drugs or not. But on the side of this investigation, there are 2 debates rocking Belgium at the moment. The first debate is on radicalization in prison. Apparently, it is not gangs, but radicalized inmates who run the show now in prison and have influence on inmates such as Benjamin Herman. And the other debate rocking Belgium is on these short-term leaves, these temporary leaves from prison, which Benjamin Herman enjoyed as part of his rehabilitation. Now, many people in the Belgian population don't understand why such a violent and unstable individual was allowed to get out, but experts in the field say that it is essential for inmates to have these kind of temporary leaves. It allows them to be reintegrated into society, and just because one person committed such horrific acts should not put the whole system back into question. Tessa?
All right, thank you for that, Brian Carter, live in Brussels. And still to come for you on Good Morning Europe, the painful reality of Northern Ireland's abortion law. We hear one woman's harrowing story. But first, here's a look at your weather.